I find myself last year at a very low moment. I am standing in my bathroom. It's a moment I know every woman can relate to. There in my underwear. I'm looking in the mirror. And of course, I am picking myself apart. I'm like, I hate how I'm getting really jowly right here. And I don't like how I've got these like big lines that are starting. And then I notice, I've got this like indent right here that I don't like. And I don't like these like kind of marks right here that go this way on my neck. I've covered them up with foundation. And then this boob hangs lower than the other boob. And I'm just picking myself apart because that's what I've been doing for the past 4 decades. That's what almost all women and even men do it too. This is what I'm finding based on the research of the book. And then as soon as my mind is negative about my appearance, my mind goes negative about my day. Oh, God, I forgot to text Lisa back. I need to finish up that report. Oh, my gosh, my first Zoom meeting is at 9. Oh, the dog needs to be walked. And now I'm going down the road negative about the day. The whole vibe is, ugh. And I don't know what came over me, but I just literally had nothing to say to myself. I really felt overwhelmed, just an average low moment. And I found myself, as pathetic as it sounds, raising my hand and high-fiving my own reflection in the mirror, braless in my underwear. It felt good. I put my shoulders back. I felt a little bit like, okay, I got this. And I went on with my day. The next day, there I am again. And my mind is going negative. And I'm like, nope, high five. And that's what the high five habit is. But this is just the beginning. The high five habit book is full of a bazillion tools. But I want to unpack this one because there's so much science here. And for women in particular, this is unbelievable in how it changes you and your relationship with yourself. So first, let's start with a high five. Think about when in your life you have either given or received high fives. What does a high five from someone else or a high five that you're giving to somebody else communicate?
You're on the same team. You're like in it together.
Yeah. And, it's also like, I think about it, you give it to somebody before a big play. We got this. You give it to somebody when their attitude's going down. Come on, keep going, pick your attitude up. You give it to somebody in celebration. And so a high five communicates support and empowerment and partnership and trust and celebration. And it's so powerful, and we're so good at giving all of those things to other people. Like you and everybody, especially women. We cheer for our friends. We create birthday parties. We buy people presents. We do work for our colleagues when they're overwhelmed. We help our parents out with whatever. We're so good at cheering for our favorite musicians and buying people stuff. We are horrendous at giving that same support and celebration to ourselves. In fact, we not only don't give ourselves support and celebration, we do the opposite. We tear ourselves down, and we beat ourselves up, and we pick ourselves apart. And every single woman I know is constantly saying, how the fuck do I put myself first? How do I love myself? I know I'm supposed to. Well, I'll tell you how you do it. You put yourself first by doing for yourself what you've been doing for everybody else, because that's how everybody else became first in your life. You need to start to cheer for, support, and validate yourself, period. I realize now that I'm high-fiving myself that I have spent the first 40 years of my life either criticizing my reflection or ignoring it. How sad is that?
It's incredibly heartbreaking and yet extremely familiar to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women.
Yeah. And believe it or not, a lot of men. There's a lot of men that don't want to look themselves in the eye in a mirror and be with themselves because they're so focused on the things that they haven't achieved or the things that they failed at. And so they're ignoring themselves. They're not being with themselves. And so first things first, when you take a moment in the morning to just stand in front of the mirror and be with yourself, and then you raise your hand in a gesture that you have always associated with celebration, support, belief, and empowerment with other people, There's a number of things that happen that can be proven by research. First things first, this is research out of Harvard. It's recent. They've shown in studies that simply taking a minute in the morning to get intentional about who you're going to be today and how you're going to show up changes your productivity. It changes your level of confidence. It changes how impactful you are as a leader at work and in life. So this moment in the mirror is not to be diminished. This is a moment for you to be able to take a moment and intentionally align yourself with who you're going to be. Second piece of research is from a field of study called neurobics. It basically means when you marry a physical action with something, a thought that's unexpected, you accelerate the development of new neural pathways. And there's famous studies that have proven that if you brush with like your non-dominant hand while you're thinking something, it sticks in your mind because you have to focus. Well, the same is true when you raise your hand and high five your own reflection. You see, you've been doing this for your entire lifetime. So there's already subconscious programming here, Lisa. The second that you raise your hand like this, it is so programmed in your mind to associate belief, cheering, empowerment, celebration, with the high five itself, that it's impossible to go, God, I hate my neck. Boy, is that cellulite ugly. You can't do it because this part of the mind immediately takes over and does all the positive stuff with a high five. It's crazy. Try it tomorrow morning. You will not be able to criticize yourself. Now there's another piece of research around this, which is, when you do a high five, we did one, the first one we did, right? We didn't quite hit each other in the right, good smack. So what did we do?
We did it.
Correct. Because a good high five requires you to be present and intentional. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
All of that in a little high five. And so what I started to notice was that I was in real time shifting my relationship to myself. Instead of criticizing the woman I saw in the mirror or ignoring her, I was developing a partnership, a trust, a sense of self-validation, I have my own back. I see you, Mel Robbins. We're going to have a great day today. We got this. No matter what it is that life is going to throw at us, you got this. That's how it all started. And then, of course, I put it on my story after a couple weeks of doing it, and people around the world started to post pictures of themselves doing it, and then all of their stories started rolling in about the difference that it was making. There was one woman that said that she's been struggling with body dysmorphia for 20 years, cannot look in the mirror, and after 5 days of doing this, can stare at herself in the eyes with a grin.
5 days.
5 days. And the reason why is because of the lifetime association that you have with doing this for other people. So when you try this tomorrow, here's what I want you to do. Stand in front of your bathroom mirror and take a moment and just be with yourself for a second. And then if there's resistance to raising your hand and high-fiving your own reflection, what is that resistance?
Mel, would you fill in some of the blanks for the last one or two humans listening to our podcast around the world? Give us a quick condensed version of the highlights of your career and what led you to write this recent book called The High Five Habit.
Well, it's interesting because when I hear you list off all these things that I've done, there's a part of my mind that fills in a blank, and it's saying, who is he talking about? Like, I literally feel kind of disconnected from the amount of stuff that I've done. But, I think that one of the things that's really unique about me is that my brand of personal development and transformation and inspiration typically requires me to either fall in a hole or dig one for myself. Personally, professionally, and it's when I hit a low moment and I realize, oh my gosh, no one's coming to solve this for me. I need to manufacture a ladder that's going to help me climb out of where I am, whether that is mental, whether it is physical habits, whether it's something that's a process thing or a personnel thing going on in business. And it's through the struggles that I have had in my life, in my work, with our kids, in being an entrepreneur, that I have discovered some of the greatest tools that have been transformative in my own life. And so I think one of the interesting things is that people view me as an expert in change, an expert in habits, an expert in motivation, both of self and in others. I don't view myself as that. I view myself as somebody who is a light on the path that you are walking on. And the reason why I know I'm a light on the path is because somehow we've connected and you're listening to this or you're watching this. And so you are meant to hear something that we are about to talk about. And that it's through the sharing of particularly the struggles and the sharing of the simple tactics, tools, research, or stories that have helped me in similar situations that has created all of the success, all of the impact that you see today. And I think that those two things are really important. The struggle is just as important as the solution, because I think that in life and in business, it is through the breakdowns and it's through the hard moments in our lives and in our work that we build confidence, that we build courage, that we build resilience. I mean, think about engineering, for example. A lot of times, some of the best and most innovative ideas in terms of coding or in terms of a process or in terms of a product is when something's not working and when you make a mistake or when you spend all this time working on something and you run headfirst into a brick wall. And unfortunately, both in corporate culture and in our personal lives, for some reason, we all feel like we got to hide our mistakes. But it's in the examining and unpacking and learning from our mistakes that you find the greatest wisdom. You find the solutions that you're looking for. And so, that's the importance of sharing struggle. Makes you realize you're not alone. It pulls the stigma and shame away from making mistakes, which is the only way that you innovate. It's the only way that you keep moving forward. And then the solutions are important because they give hope, they give a plan, and they give tactics. And, the final thing that I'll say is that I think the thing that I have a real knack for is that I have this ability to take really complex topics and boil them down into very simple, tactical, and memorable things to do. And what I've found over the course of my life is that we all make a major mistake. And the major mistake that we make when it comes to changing anything is that we believe that just because the problem that we're facing is big, or the dream or goal that we have is big, that somehow the solution is also big. And I have found it is the exact opposite. The bigger the problem, the smaller the solution. The larger the goal, the tinier the tactic will be to get you started and keep you moving toward it. This is how you manifest properly, by the way. Right here. You have to visualize in your mind writing the check and feeling the pain in your legs of uncertainty. You have to visualize in your mind sitting in that plane seat, flying to a conference, feeling the pit in your stomach, being worried about whether or not anyone's going to take you seriously because there's all these big podcasters there. You need to feel your chest contract and squeeze in as you walk up to somebody that you deeply admire and you start a conversation, or you walk up to an event organizer and say, I'd like to apply to be on a panel next year. How do I do that? And your chest gets really tight because you feel like you don't belong there because you don't have the numbers yet, or whatever your stupid story is. When you picture that in your mind and you feel the negative sensation in your body, you are doing resistance training. This is how you align your mind, body, and spirit to not resist the hard stuff. Here's a cool fact about your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually spending the money, buying the plane ticket, getting on the plane and flying to that event, or you imagining it in your mind. And when you run through the hard things that you're avoiding in your mind and you allow yourself to feel the negative sensation in your body, you are training and mentally rehearsing the exact same way Olympic athletes do with the 9 sports psychologists that the U.S. Olympic team has to help our athletes prepare. You are mentally rehearsing before the actual event so that your mind and your body are trained to anticipate and push right on through all the stuff that's scary because you've already rehearsed it. That's how you use manifesting to help you do the work to get what you want.
Wow. I'm so grateful that we kind of brought that up and that you helped walk me through this.
What did you get out of that?
Well, I became aware of not only what I need to do, but like what's the fear that's attached to it.
What is the fear?
Well, the fear is always going to be uncertainty or scarcity, because I think the one thing that's been beneficial to me in my life is that I've always had my back against the wall from being somebody who was a convicted felon in jail, not growing up with a ton of money, that sort of thing, where I've always been forced to just hustle, work, where I'm used to this kind of situation. But on the flip side, the negative is I'm so used to being stressed because I grew up in a stressful environment. I put myself in a stressful environment from selling drugs and doing drugs for a majority of my life when I was younger, so that a lot of times now I've had to become aware of when I'm creating more stress around something that's a good thing instead of something that I would have seen back in the day as something that was bad or whatever.
Can I unpack that?
Sure.
So you just said that you realize that you're used to having your back up against the wall. That having been a kid that grew up in a very chaotic household, who then turned to dealing drugs, who then got arrested and was convicted as a felon and served time behind bars, all of which I'm very familiar with because I used to be a public defender in Manhattan. So I have not served time, but I have represented people accused of crimes and who have committed crimes and who have served time for a large part of my career. And one of the things that I want to point out is that you were attracted to the chaos of selling drugs because it's all you knew as a kid in your home and it felt familiar. And this is why it can be really challenging to break old patterns. And that's because patterns are familiar. And if they're familiar, they just repeat automatically without you even realizing it. And so here you are now. How many years have you been out of jail?
Gosh, so December 26th just marked 13 years.
So 13 years. On December 26th, it was 13 years since you were released from federal prison. Amazing.
Or county jail, yeah. But
okay, well, county jail.
Yeah.
It's still a felony conviction.
Yep.
13 years, you're behind bars. You have turned your entire life around, but there is one pattern that still runs your life. And the pattern that runs your life is chaos. And if you don't identify that chaos and friction and feeling on edge is what you're so familiar with, if you don't identify that now and recognize all the places in your business where you are creating chaos, creating friction, and putting yourself on edge, that pattern will keep you from living into your full potential. And so here's what I would do. I would make a list of every aspect of your daily life or business that creates chaos, that causes friction internally, or leaves you feeling on edge. And then I would do the work this year to put systems, people, process in place so that you create new patterns. I can relate to this so profoundly, not because I've served time behind bars, but because, like so many people, having stored trauma from being molested as a kid, when I was 9 years old, in my nervous system, I have lived my whole life from the age of 9 till about 46 when I first started understanding that this was stored trauma and understanding that my anxiety was largely due to the fact that when that happened to me at the age of 9, my nervous system went from calm and cool and resting to on edge, stressed out, fight or flight. And it probably never flipped off of that. My dominant pattern, Doug, is being busy and being on the run and being on the move, because if I can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else, I'm going to be safe. And so the thing that doesn't work in my life is that my whole business, up until very recently, was organized around a pattern that's Mel's running to catch a plane, Mel's running to do this, Mel's on the move. And I hated how it felt, but I had no idea how to stop being so busy and stop being on the run, because I equated being on the run with safety and with control. And it's the opposite. You see, these patterns that we develop when we're a kid made us feel safe when we were a kid because they were familiar. But now that they're an adult, they're screwing up our lives. And so I have gone through the same exercise very recently. What are all the things in my business and that I'm doing in my day-to-day life that I hate? What are the things that cause friction? Where are there, where is this behavior making me miserable? And now I am going to work with removing all the friction, removing all the busyness. And I'm going to tell you first of all, what are you getting out of me sharing this?
Well, I'm very thankful because my audience is going to totally relate to this, and that's kind of why I shared what I shared, because there's so many people that struggle with this very thing. And I was very fortunate that I was in a therapist's office probably, I don't remember, 6 or 7 years ago, and I was stressed, and I had nothing to be stressed about. I was making good money, I was writing books, and I had just written my first book, and my therapist was like, what was your childhood like? I was like, my parents got divorced. And I just started explaining what happened. She's like, you grew up in chaos. So like you said, your nervous system is going to seek out more chaos. And then it began to make sense, because she was like, you have a certain level of homeostasis that your body is used to, and your body is always going to revert back to that. You have to create a new normal. And I was fortunate that I learned, I'm still aware of it. And I think just through, I'm aware of it, and I still make mistakes based on it just because I'm still working through a lot of that. But there's a lot of people that, as you're saying that, they never figure it out, because they're like, they just accept the fact they're always going to be stressed.
You don't have to be. Like, I think the place, if you want to heal, if you want to be happier, the place to really focus all your work on is regulating your nervous system. And there's lots of ways you can do it. You can do it through cold exposure therapy, by climbing into an ice bath and learning how to breathe yourself through the discomfort for 30 seconds to a minute. You can do it through EMDR. You can do it through guided psychedelic therapies, with a licensed therapist. But you're not going to talk yourself out of a nervous system response. You can also put your hands on your heart. This is something I write about in the High Five Habit, and press on your vagus nerve and say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, which will bring you back into your body, and it'll flip the switch between your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And so there are things you can do, but understand that these patterns get triggered at an emotional nervous system level before your brain catches up. And so the reason why, for example, when I asked you, hey, visualize yourself writing a check that's scary, and you said, I feel that in my legs, that's your nervous system. That's where your stored tension, trauma, and stress activates. It can be different for everybody. And so, back to the advice I was giving you, you have to write down all the areas where you are unknowingly creating chaos. And I remember this person said something to me when I first got involved in the speaking business and my career started to take off. And he said, Mel, you better say yes to every speech you can get, because speakers on the corporate circuit get hot and then they disappear. And this is a fad. And that triggered that, like, I got to go, 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 go. And so for 5 years, I said yes to absolutely everything I possibly could, because my husband and I were in a horrendous financial situation and we desperately needed the money. And I ran myself into the ground, not because I was being intentional, but because this pattern of being busy kicked into full gear, but it was driven by fear. It was driven by fear. And I believe that as much work as you have done on yourself, turning your whole life around and now serving so many people and making a huge difference in building this business, if you dig deep, what drives the fear of spending the money and investing yourself is a deeper fear.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And it's forcing me, or just thinking about it now, it's forcing me to just to reinforce that the work never stops. Like, there's always going to be something that comes up. And I think a lot of people think of healing as they climb this mountain, they put a stake in the ground, they're like, yep, that's it, I'm done. And it's not what happens. And I think that's why a lot of people, they stay stuck and they develop this fixed mindset, because they don't have the humility to look in the mirror and say, like, I need to improve this. This area of my life needs some healing. I need to do some work. And we touched on, obviously, some things that I need to work on personally, and both personally and professionally. But I guess my question back to you is, so the High Five Habit's been out now for several months. We just got through the holidays. What's been like something recently since the book came out where you've had to give yourself a high five and pick yourself back up after you were in a negative self-talk loop, you were feeling low about yourself? Was there something? And if so, what was it?
It's basically every day.
Yeah.
You just said you've written the High Five Habit. It's a wildly successful book. Is there a moment that you have to pick yourself back up? The reason why I start every day with a high five in the mirror as part of my morning routine, and I do it like it's now, I've repeated it so many times, I don't even think about it, because it's just like brushing my teeth. I brush my teeth. I wouldn't even think about starting my day without brushing my teeth. I wouldn't think about starting my day without high-fiving myself in the mirror and experiencing the benefit neurologically and chemically to what it does. I need one every day. Life is fucking hard. I mean, just this week, I have one daughter who has started a new job after graduating from college, having had 2 years of her college experience imploded. And she is starting remote at a large tech company. She is profoundly capable, and she's a nervous wreck. And that makes me feel sad and distracted and upset for her. We have another daughter who is a junior in college and which basically means she's had 6 months of a traditional college experience, who just got word that school is now pushed back a week. It's starting remote, that Rush is online, just things that seem trivial, but it's her whole world. And so her trying to grapple with how to make sense of the ever-changing world that we live in. I was supposed to fly down and see my parents who are on the panhandle of Florida this weekend. And given the surge that we're in the middle of, I think I need to push this thing off because there's connections involved and I don't want to spend the weekend in the airport. And it's a lot of money to fly down there right now. And not that I don't have it, but I'm kind of feeling like, God, I don't want to disappoint my mom, but I really don't want to spend 2 days in an airport. And what do I do? And so it's like, Mel, come on, make the phone call. Every single day, life is going to throw situations, emotions, distractions, stuff at you that you can't control. And the whole game is how you support yourself in responding to it. And so I have developed the skill of being so in tune with my nervous system. And when I'm kind of in my body and feeling comfortable in my own skin, and when I am triggered and I go on edge. And the second I feel myself go on edge, I have a skill of putting myself in pause, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and checking in with myself and getting aware of what is going on. And let's take the example of why, the high five helped this morning of feeling on edge about calling my parents who we haven't seen since end of September and saying, I think we should push this off 3 weeks. It's my mother's birthday. I deeply miss them. I want to see them. And I know in my heart the right decision is to push this off a couple weeks. And yet I still feel the emotional trigger. Am I going to disappoint somebody? Does that mean I'm a bad daughter? Am I a selfish jerk for doing this? All of which could either settle in and put me on edge all day, or I could recognize that's what happens and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm going to do what works and what feels right for me. I know I'm a good daughter. And I know that this is the right decision. And my mom and dad can have their reaction. And when I see them 3 weeks from now, when there are less flight delays and the weather is better and I have more time to spend with them, we won't even remember the moment I made the phone call and said. So every single day, you have to practice these skills because life is always changing. Like, that's why I like thinking about it like skills. Writing words on a piece of paper is a skill. You use it every day. Scrolling through your phone is a skill. You use it and practice it every single day. Drinking a cup of water is a skill. You use it and practice every single day. Self-awareness is a skill. Recognizing when you're on edge is a skill. Knowing how to come and get back into your body and become aware of what's triggering you and then work through it and choose how to respond based on your values, that's a skill. And in life, you need to draw upon, strengthen, and practice these types of skills every single day.
So beautifully said. And thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. Because I think that's something that a lot of people, especially the last few years, have struggled with. It's people pleasing, right? Like being afraid of doing the right thing for themselves because they fear it's going to hurt somebody else. And then also regulating yourself and not creating more stress in your life, which then, you and I have both struggled with coping with substances, to help numb anxiety, stress, and that's not good either. And there's a lot of people that do that. So if you were to say you had like 1 or 2 things other than the 5-second rule that when you're feeling emotionally charged, you give yourself the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do something to kind of get your body back to some sort of stability, like what would those things be?
Okay, so in a moment of stress, what are the top tools that you can use? I can think of a number of them. You already mentioned the first one. So the first one is the 5-second rule. Simply counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupts your nervous system response and it interrupts the racing thoughts. And it gives you just a moment where you can choose what you do next. And so you could count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and take an action to respond. Or what I often do is I count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to stop the racing in my mind and to stop my heart from taking off in terms of flooding my body, with adrenaline and cortisol and all this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I put myself in pause. I take a deep breath and I just do nothing for a minute. Deciding not to react is a powerful way to react. Gathering yourself is a power move. And so that's number one. The second thing that you can do in moments where you get triggered or stressed or you feel the emotional wave come on, get outside, put your phone in your back pocket, preferably turn it off, and take a walk. Simply getting outside for 10 minutes will slow your breathing down. It will raise your gaze and attention on something other than the whatever situation train wreck that just happened, or the phone call you need to make, or the text you just got. A 10-minute walk outside will work wonders in settling your mind and your body. A third thing that you can do is you can get out a blank piece of paper and you can do what I call a brain dump. Get all that crap that you're thinking out of your mind and just write and write and write, just as if you are barfing after a big night of drinking. Just barf it all out on a piece of paper. Get it out of your head. And as you stop writing, ask yourself anything else and just keep writing. And it'll just be a mishmash of stuff, but eventually you'll get it out of your head and your body and you will calm down. A fourth thing that you can do, if you have a bathtub, you can draw a bath, and soaking in a hot tub will stimulate your vagus nerve and it will settle your body. A fifth thing that you could do is you can run a cold shower and step into a cold shower. Let me tell you something. I don't care how horrible that text was that your ex just sent you. If you step into a cold shower, it is so shocking that the only thing that your brain and your nervous system will pay attention to is the cold shower. Get in there and stand in there for 30 seconds to a minute and breathe through it. And something miraculous will happen. You will literally feel a flood wash over your body. Those are 5 free things that you can do that will help you take control in a moment where life has triggered you and made you scared or anxious or freaked out or whatever.
Mel, in your life, did you ever have a chance to meet Dr. Stephen R. Covey?
No.
He would have been riveted listening to you the last couple of minutes. I want to read a passage from your most recent book, The High Five Habit. In essence, you described what the big idea is, but I want to read a passage. It says, it starts with you. If you want more celebration, validation, love, acceptance, and optimism, you must practice giving those things to yourself. For real, it starts with you. If you don't cheer for yourself and your dreams, who else will? If you can't look yourself in the mirror and see someone worth loving, why would anyone else? And speaking of anyone else, when you learn to love yourself and support yourself, it helps every relationship in your life. When you can celebrate yourself, it helps you cheer louder for others, your friends, your colleagues, your family, your neighbors, and your partner. That's because the relationship with yourself is the foundation of every relationship you have in life. Riff on that.
Yeah, this was a huge epiphany for me. And, I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that since you're listening to this or watching this, you, like me, are a high achiever. You have very high standards for yourself. You're looking to improve your life. Well, I want to flag a very big mistake that took me 52 years to uncover and to change in my own life. And it is the single biggest and most profound change that I have ever discovered. And it is this. At a very young age, I started to realize, and I think, we all have this epiphany where we go, oh, holy cow. When I get good grades, my parents like me and they love me. I get a lot of positive attention when I make the football team. I'm really feeling loved when I make the cheerleading squad. Ooh, when I got into that college or had that major or made that money or bought that nice car, people really gave me a lot of positive attention. And we high achievers make a mistake of fusing what we're doing with our worthiness. We start to believe that we are only worthy of celebration, support, and love when we are doing something that is worth celebrating or worth validating or worth cheering for. And if you don't wake up and separate the things that you're doing and striving for and the goals that you have from your inherent self-worth as a human being, you will forever feel this sense that you're not enough. You will forever feel this void, because if your self-worth and your lovability is anchored in achievement, even when you make $1 million, even when you make the New York Times bestseller list, even when you meet the person of your dreams, the second you achieve that thing, you're going to now look for something else, because your worth as a human being depends on what you're doing. The high five habit is all about this radical idea that will change your life. And the idea is this. If you are breathing, you're worthy of celebration. The mere fact that you exist is why you are worthy of being loved and supported and forgiven. And it's why you deserve kindness. It's not because you made it to the gym. It's not because you're making 100 grand. It's not because you just got promoted. Should you celebrate those wins? Of course. But those wins are not the reason why you're an extraordinary human being. And, I had this all knotted up. And, I wondered, why did I, every time I achieved my goals, I would still see a woman in the mirror that wasn't enough. I was my own worst critic. And by critic, this is what I mean. I was relentless in focusing on what wasn't working. I was relentless in pointing out to myself all the things I did wrong instead of the 1,000 things I was doing right. Yeah. And that constant grinding beatdown was so just much the default, I wasn't even aware of it until I discovered the power of high-fiving myself in the mirror and silencing that critic. And, I'll tell you an even more personal thing that I bet a bunch of you are going to really relate to. So when I discovered the high five habit, and it was just by dumb luck, I was going through a lot in my life. It was April of 2020. There was a lot going on in my business. This was before the PPP loans had come out. The speaking business was in a free fall. My television show had been canceled. Our kids had come home, and they were just exploding with anxiety and grief and anger about college getting canceled. Like, it was just like a mess. And I would wake up in the morning and I just felt overwhelmed by my life. And it doesn't even matter what's going on in the backdrop, because I think we've all had that experience where you just feel overwhelmed by your to-do list. You feel overwhelmed by how busy your life is. You feel overwhelmed by the issues that you're facing. Even though there's other amazing things going on, it's like the overwhelm that drags you down. And so I'm standing in the bathroom And I look at myself in the mirror and I immediately begin with the beat down. I'm like, oh, God, you look terrible. And the lines on my neck and one boob's hanging lower than the other. And, the circles under my eyes. And then, of course, once your mindset goes critical, it rests there. So it went from attacking my physical appearance to, why'd I wake up so late? God, I got 8 minutes to get on a Zoom call. You forgot to text Scott back. Oh, come on, Mel. Like boom, 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 boom. No grace, no kindness, no compassion. That's how I started my day. And in this moment, on a random morning on April 2020, all of a sudden, this is divine intervention. There is no question. I stop for a second and I realize, holy cow, that woman in the mirror looks beaten down and overwhelmed. And for whatever reason, I just raised my hand and I gave her a high five in the mirror. And, look, it's not like lightning struck in that moment. But what happened is my shoulders dropped. I laughed because it seemed so stupid. But I felt this like energy shift. It was sort of like a shift like, all right, okay, sort of like if a teammate blows a free throw in basketball. When you high five them, it's like, shake it off. Come on, we're going to still win. Get out there. I believe in you. Let's go. It's that kind of energy. And so I felt that. And I kind of had this like, come on, you got a roof over your head. You're going to be fine. You're going to figure it out. I know it's a lot, but you're going to figure it out, Ma. And boom, I went on with my day. And the next day I did it again. And the next day I did it again. And the next day I did it again. And I started to realize I was feeling something. First of all, the critic was shutting up because here's where the science gets crazy cool. And this isn't just Mel Robbins science. The woman who discovered neuroplasticity 30 years ago, that neuroscientist went bananas. Her head basically exploded when I started discussing the high five habit. Here's what we know happens when you add a simple high five to your morning routine. Number one, you get a drip of dopamine. And dopamine is critical. The reason why dopamine is critical is because it boosts your mood. When you simply high five yourself, your brain recognizes the high five because the programming's already in here. Your brain knows what to do when the high five is coming. Boop, dopamine. Dopamine's important because it boosts your mood. We know that your mood in the morning impacts productivity all day long. Second thing that it does, as you go to raise your hand, the first time you do it, you're going to be thinking, Mel, Scott, you two have lost me on this. This is so stupid. Like your critic is going to be going because this part of your brain is going to be engaged. The second you get close to mirror, something crazy happens. Your mind goes silent. Your mind goes silent because your brain is now triggered by the action. This is called neurobics, an entire field of study about neuropathway activity in physical motion. Your brain goes quiet because your brain recognizes a high five. And so it grabs all the neuroassociation and programming in your subconscious and it marries it with your reflection. A high five has always said, I believe in you. I see you. I love you. You got this. It is celebration. It is belief. It is confidence. It is optimism. It is resilience. It's motivation. A high five, never in the history of high fives has a high five been, have a terrible day. You are the worst. You're going to fail. That's not what a high five means. That's why your critic shuts up because the high five programming that's already in your brain overrides it. It's incredible. That's the third thing that happens. As you repeat this new action your brain is watching, this isn't a mantra, which doesn't work, by the way. This is a physical habit your brain is witnessing you do. So your brain starts to see you treating yourself with kindness, compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, support. Your brain's filter, the reticular activity system, is paying attention. It's changing in real time. Do you realize that after adding a simple high five to my morning routine, it took about 5 days for this to happen, by the way, but I've now done it since April of 2020. Every single morning after I brush my teeth, I stack the habit together. It's now programmed as a habit loop in there. Don't even think about it. The benefits are incredible. When I see myself in the mirror, it wouldn't occur to me to think something negative because I have fundamentally rewired my mind. I see a human being that I'm rooting for. I see the person I high five every morning. It's freaking unbelievable. And the way that it's changed me as a leader, I don't look at what's wrong. I focus on what's working. And when something screws up, like this morning, I put up a big post this morning about depression, because my husband is now publicly talking about the long-term depression that he's been struggling with. And we edited the post really intently because it's a serious topic and I have millions of followers and I would never just send somebody casually out on a stage to talk on my behalf. So everything I post, I get last eyes on. And the post that we edited isn't the one that got posted. And the old Mel Robbins, the negative, critical, like kind of something's wrong, stressed out, that Mel Robbins, the pre-high five habit Mel Robbins, my default would have been, oh, everything, like this kind of reaction to it. The new Mel Robbins was like, oh, okay. I wonder if it was a tech glitch. Well, let's fix it. Like, it's unbelievable to have a default that you have intentionally programmed in that's optimistic, encouraging, supportive. It's life-changing. You'll make a lot more money too, because you're not gripping everything so tight. And I want to tell you one more insight, because this is super important. You know, when I first said to my husband, who's also an entrepreneur, I think you should try this high five habit thing. I really think you should add it to your morning routine. And now keep in mind, my husband is the founder of a men's retreat called Soul Degree. He is all about men going in and unbottling the stuff that keeps you feeling like there's a vice on your head or your chest. He is a Buddhist meditation instructor. He's a yoga instructor. He is on the board of advisors of NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership Institute. He's an incredible guy. And he's been struggling with depression for 10 years. And he has also, unbeknownst to me, been beating the heck out of himself because he failed in his first business as an entrepreneur in the restaurant business. And I know so many of you are going to relate to this story, so I want to tell it to you. You see, Chris and his best friends went into the restaurant business. And, you know, the stats on the restaurant business are bananas. I think it's like, what, 4% of restaurants make it beyond 4 years or something like that. And so they made it beyond 4 years. They ended up making it 7 years before they sold it to the folks that own it now. But, you know, their first location was amazing. And we were complete idiots. We cashed out our life savings, our kids' college funds. We threw it all into the business. We leveraged the business with our house and credit cards and factoring. And, you know, what could go wrong? Well, then the housing crisis hit. And we found ourselves $800,000 in debt. Chris hadn't been paid for 6 months. I lost my job. And it was crushing. That was the first hole that I fell in when I hit rock bottom, and I invented the 5-second rule in that moment to help me get out of bed when the anxiety was so bad that I literally would lay there like a human pot roast marinating in fear over all of our problems. And what's interesting is that as Chris and I have clawed our way out of debt, as we have rewritten our lives and launched new chapters, I've always looked at that period and that business failing as a gift. I've always, and Chris's business partner too, was like, kind of could shrug his shoulders and be like, hey, entrepreneurship, failure is part of the package here. Doesn't mean you're a failure. And actually his business partner's like, I'm really proud of what we built. I'm proud of how we were operators. I'm proud of the culture we built. And yeah, like, it didn't return the investment that we thought it would. And I'm also grateful for it, Scott, because without it, I never would have been in such a crisis that I needed the 5-second rule. So it's like a gift. It wasn't until I asked Chris to add this high five to the mirror, and his reaction was this: I think I'll pass. That sounds stupid. And I'm like, excuse me? Okay, but I'm on to something here. Would you just do it for me? because I need your support. Would you just try it for 5 days, for crying out loud? And so Chris tried the high five in the mirror. You don't say anything. You just raise your hand, high five yourself. That's it. Send yourself into the day with all of that documented benefit, like you are your own best teammate, into the game of life and business, knowing you have your own back, knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to go for it, that you're going to pick yourself up. You're going to face it. You got this. After 5 days, this is what he said to me. He said, Mel, the reason why I thought the high five was stupid is because I look in the mirror and I see somebody that failed. I see somebody that didn't provide for his family. I see somebody that's a bad husband, a bad father because of that. And you only high five somebody that you believe in and you like. And I think I'm a failure. So why on earth would I high five myself? And I think that in him seeing that, it's illustrative of what's actually holding people back. It's the fact that when you look in the mirror, you are still judging yourself for the mistakes of the past. You're withholding the very support, the very forgiveness, the compassion that you need in order to heal, in order to write a new chapter, in order to be productive, in order to change your habits. You've been outsourcing that appreciation to everybody else, that compassion to everybody else, when really you got to bring it in-house. I had no idea, Scott, that the man standing next to me at the bathroom sink every morning for the last 10 years has been beating himself up over a business that failed. And I looked at the exact same thing and thought it was an extraordinary gift. I didn't believe any of those things about Chris. I thought he was an incredible husband, an incredible father. I thought he was an amazing entrepreneur who, through failing and trying, stumbled into his true calling, which is this men's retreat soul degree. And it was really scary to learn just how dark it had gotten for him. And what I'm happy to say is that through therapy and through talking about it and through not bottling it up and through high five and through exercise and through acts of self-compassion, self-kindness, self-appreciation, the fog is lifting. I see the light coming back on. I see my happy husband coming back. And so, it has been a deeply, deeply personal and powerful and transformational experience to not only confront just how awful I've been to myself by just constantly focusing on what's wrong or constantly beating myself up, or you could have done this better, you should have said this, or if only you'd sent this text. And the relief and peace that you feel when you are able to look yourself in the mirror, and even though you may have flubbed the presentation, or you didn't meet your quota this year in the sales, or you raised your voice at your kids, or you drank a little too much, or whatever it is that normally you beat yourself up at. If you can have more compassion and kindness with yourself, research shows that of all the behavior change that you could engage in, all of it, exercise, diet, meditation, all behavior change, the number one behavior change that has the greatest impact on your fulfillment and your happiness is making it a habit to be kind to yourself. And so that's what the high five habit is all about. It begins with a high five in the mirror, but there's so much science in this, so much research in this about habits that train your mind and train your brain, train your body to take the resting default from self-criticism and stress and anxiety and negativity to a resting default of calm, centered, confident, encouraging, and compassionate. And when you can start each day feeling grounded in your body and looking yourself in the mirror and seeing a person that you're rooting for, that you like, that you support, you will take that foundational energy and strength back out into the world, and it will transform your family. It will transform your teammates. It will transform your company. You getting right with you changes everything. For those of you that are barely able to get out of bed, the reason why this is important is because the high five gives you a drip of dopamine that changes your mood. When your mood lifts a little, you can focus better and you feel a little more encouraged. When you give yourself a high five, your nervous system gives you a jolt. And that little bit of positive energy is like fuel in your tank. And, you know, it's not that the high five in the mirror is going to change all the circumstances of your life. It doesn't change that. It changes you.
Right.
And it changes your ability to face them. And one high five at a time, one day at a time, one little dopamine drip, one little nervous system jolt, one little affirmation that is physical where you demonstrate that you still have your own back, you will start to take the steps that lead you where you're meant to go. You're going to tap back into that confidence you were born with. You're going to reconnect with the resilience that you've been building your whole life. You're going to remind yourself of who you are, a motherfucking superstar. That's right. You know what I'm saying? Like that is what it's doing. That's why it's divine. That's why it's spiritual. That's why it works. And I can say that not because it worked in my life. We're doing this thing called the High Five Challenge. We have 103,000 people taking a 5-day challenge where I unpack confidence. I teach you how to break through self-doubt. We go into the science of the high five habit. There are research-backed journaling prompts that you do. We've taken it off a Facebook group and it's housed on the Growth Day app, right? And it is free for you to do for 5 days to get all of these tools. And it's not on Facebook, so there are no ads. There's no cross-posting. It's one community of people who have shown up. And day one, you watch a video, you do a journal prompt. And then I'm like, and put a photo of yourself in the comments and introduce yourself and why you're here so you can allow yourself to be seen. And seeing people from 91 countries alone in their bathrooms high-fiving the mirror and realizing everybody needs this. Like, you need to know you're not alone. You need to know that right now is the moment in time where you can give yourself permission to believe in yourself again. You can stop holding your breath. You can actually do small things to take control of your life. And we are here to support you in the High Five Challenge. And I know you're going to put a link in your show notes and send everybody to it.
It's so simple. It's so powerful. And so many people are already saying, yes, I'm in this. And I love that it's free. I love that it's focused on community. I love that people have the opportunity to be seen because so many of us are hiding, especially after being a year closed off. So I think it's brilliant. And I want to get into a little bit before we end today with just the other things you kind of suggest, like the journaling. I think the journaling, the visualization. So can you take people a little bit, give them a little inside scoop, an inside peek of what they're going to experience?
Oh, and the High Five Challenge is incredible. Okay, so all you need is a first name and an email address. And that's how you get in. It's free. And then you just got to log into this app called Growth Day. You can either download the app. It's the world's leading personal development app, or you can just take it online. If you can get to the internet, you can just log in using the link that Koya is going to provide you for free. Day one, you watch a video. That's it from me. You then get a journaling prompt. You journal. If you want to take notes on the video, you can, and they're saved. And then you go to the comments. You're going to be like, oh my God, look at all these people in here. That's incredible. Whoa, and look at what Ralphie has to say. And look at what Maya is saying in Bangladesh. And what? There's somebody in here from Burma? Holy cow. Whoa, there's somebody from Oklahoma in there. Look at that. That person right there in Belgium is feeling the same way I feel right now. It's extraordinary. And then you're going to come back for day 2. And then you're going to come back for day 3. And then you're going to come back for day 4. And then you're going to come back for day 5. And by the end of it, you're going to feel something you have not felt in a very long time. Hope. You're going to feel motivated. You're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel like, there's work to do. but you know you can high five your way there.
I love that.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.